for a lot of people here in the HR community that have been, involved with SHRM, involved with Morocco. It's pulling a lot of those people into a different environment, right? Just a different type of HR gathering, and I think that's exciting.
Hello, this is John Bernanovich, president and founder of Willory. I'm delighted to be joined by TJ Markwas. TJ is the Director of Recruiting Services at Talent Resources. You can find TJ socially on Twitter at TMARKWAS. And I'm looking forward to having a video chat with TJ about all things as it relates to kind of adjusting to what the COVID and coronavirus impact has had on him personally and his business. In addition to that, anything he's seeing relative to the HR profession and what we could be doing to better support our colleagues and employees and our leadership and organization. And then lastly, we'll talk about DisruptHR Columbus and his firm's support and his individual participation in helping to spread the word on that event. So welcome, TJ.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me this morning.
No problem. Did I forget anything really important about your background that I know you're a super awesome guy, so I probably didn't do you enough praise. So what else can you tell us about yourself and the impact that you've had relative to helping people recruit and do it more effectively?
For sure. So I'll tell you a little bit more about me here. So obviously I live here in Columbus, live in Dublin. Been here for 8 years now, roughly. But I've been in the industry in a recruiting capacity to some degree for almost 10 years now. And I've been with Talent for 5. So just a little bit more specifically about what we do. Since the time I've joined the company for 5 years, we have been supporting and working with both staffing and recruiting organizations to consult and train and also fulfill internal needs with them. But we do a little bit of work on the corporate side as well when it comes to contract recruiting and supporting HR services within organizations that need that help. So, and that's mostly here in Ohio, and we do work nationally with staffing and recruiting firms. So that's a little about me. I run the recruiting division for the company. So any and all of our clients usually funnel through me, and then we have a team of recruiters here as well that help us recruit on those roles. So that's really the high level about what we do. When it comes to supporting HR, especially in the current landscape, it's really, I think, taking on more of that consulting piece and just working with individuals, helping them through a lot of the new, like I keep referring to it as the new landscape, that we're seeing and some of the changes that are just happening as a result of everything that's happening with COVID. So that's really been, a big focus for us more recently, I'd say, in the last month and a half at this point. Can't keep track of time now. Everything's running together.
Yeah, no, it's not quite sure what day it is or what week it is or what month it is.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm calling this the temporary normal. So I think we're going to have, pre-COVID, then you're going to have this time period, however long it lasts, and then we'll have after we go through this and they have a vaccine and everybody feels safe again to go out and do their normal business. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. We'll get into some of the things you're seeing in HR and recruiting and whatnot during these unique times. Owning a staffing firm ourselves focused in HR and payroll, I know we've had an impact in some respects. A lot more candidates obviously out there because of the number of unemployment claims, as well as then clients being uniquely picky and also having to adjust their interview process to maybe not physically meet someone, if that makes sense. So that said, I don't know if, and I apologize for not knowing this, if your company has a physical presence in Columbus, or do you work normally from home? And if you're just adjusting to that new, you got friends, neighbors, critters, anybody keeping you company there?
Yeah. So we actually do not have a physical office presence. We're a pretty small company, but we're all virtual. And so the majority of us are here in Ohio that are on the team. But I've worked from home now for almost 5 years. So this is the norm of me working from home. This is my office space. I've certainly done some adjustments, I think, now that I'm here and I'm not running out to coffee shops or meeting people on the regular. But the biggest change now and working from home is the fact that my wife now also works from home. Our 2-year-old is no longer in daycare, so he's also running around the home. So that's been a change for sure. I had to make sure that the locks on the doors are functional, because if not, then I wouldn't get much done. But that's been, from my standpoint of the work environment, really the change, right? My wife works in hospitality, and obviously that's a very hard hit industry right now. So while she's supporting her members and really doing things for them to continue to support the hospitality industry here at a state level, we have modified our schedules considerably to be able to obviously take care of our son as well. At 2 years old, you really can't just put him in front of the TV for an extended period and expect them to maintain entertaining themselves. So, I mean, that's been the biggest change, but we're doing pretty well with it. I think we've kind of figured out a system at this point that works for us, and so that's really it. Yeah, but the working from home piece, for the most part, is still intact and pretty natural for me.
Sure. So are you subbing in and out then? Is that how you're doing that between your wife? You have a certain shift, she has one, and so on and so forth?
Sort of, yeah. We have certain times within the schedule. It's kind of dedicated for each of us, so we know that we can have this amount of block time for work. Obviously, when he takes his nap in the middle of the day, we have a solid 2-hour period usually where we're both on and both able to work. And then other than that, yeah, it's kind of as needed. When she has important meetings, obviously I'll take some time and be able to play with him or what we need to do. But obviously as well, being in the position that I'm in, we have always worked kind of flexible hours, and talking to candidates and doing some of the recruiting side. My evenings are often booked with calls anyway, so I certainly take calls after he goes down and when she can do some work after dinner, so to say. But we're making it work. Yeah.
Cool. So I see from your background, you've, other than initial internship, which maybe had some recruiting in it, most of your experience has been in the recruiting space. So why is it that you do what you do, TJ? What makes you passionate about recruiting?
Yeah, great question. So I actually, right out of school, I got a psychology degree, and I started working in a hospital and quickly decided that I wasn't cut out to work in a hospital. And also I worked with kids right out of school, and that was a challenge for me, just seeing some of the clinical struggles of children. And so I went back to school, studied HR, and landed in the recruiting capacity. And I've just really enjoyed, I think, the day-to-day, right? It's always something new. There are certainly challenges we face, but it's working with people, which I've always enjoyed. And it's also helping with, not just helping the people, but helping the companies that really need the people and understanding what those pain points are. And just, I think as I've grown into it more and more, it's that challenge of knowing all of the pieces and how they come together and seeing it come together. And that's the rewarding piece for me, right? Especially even in these hard times, knowing that there are still companies that are looking for very strategic and very critical positions that they need filled, and having that network of the, within our niche, at least now that I'm in the niche that I'm in, just having that network built and being able to say, I'm sure I know somebody, let me do some outreach and find someone for you. Or maybe I already know someone, let me get them connected with you and see how that might pan out for you. That is what keeps me going on a daily basis. Just making sure that I'm providing that kind of service to my clients and candidates for that matter.
Yeah. Having been in the same space for a long time myself, the hook that got me, one of my very first placements, I'll never forget, the candidate said to me, she when I made the offer to her on the phone that the client wanted to move forward with her, there was a long pause, and it was the beginning of December, and then I could tell she was crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to have made you cry. And she's like, oh no, these are tears of joy.
Right.
I can now have Christmas for my kids.
Yeah.
And just having a small part in that equation, and that candidate has been a friend of mine since that day.
Sure.
We've been very, very closely knit and tied together and worked together on a number of different opportunities. So yeah, it's certainly unique way that you can impact people's lives. There's a lot of unique things about it that maybe aren't as great as that, right?
Sure.
You have a lot of people, making decisions that maybe are ones that you wouldn't, but Yeah, you
But those
take the good.
positives, I think, more often than not outweigh those negatives. I had actually a similar experience. One of my first placements, it was actually his wife sent me a letter a couple weeks after he started his job, and they had a young child at home, which even more so now hits me, close, just because I have a 2-year-old. But thanking me because his commute was cut in half, and he could spend more time at home with his kids and see them go onto the bus, and just little things like that, right? So certainly those kind of stories and those kind of impactful things happen throughout the process, and you hear about it and make those connections, and that I think that's why I haven't been able to escape the industry, right? I'm just kidding. But no, it really is. It changes who you are, I think, when you're able to experience some of those wins and those stories.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you'd mentioned your wife's working from home now. Obviously, your 2-year-old son is not able to go to daycare for safety reasons and social distancing. So have there been any other impacts that you felt personally in regards to adjusting to our temporary normal with COVID and all the precautions that were taken?
Just being in the capacity that I'm in, John, I'm pretty involved in a lot of varying associations, not only professionally, but personally as well. And so, all of those associations, whether professional or personal, we're all kind of in a pattern where we are also doing things differently. And, I'm from West Virginia originally. I run the Central Ohio Mountaineer Alumni Group, and we are typically having plans to be doing a summer picnic for our families and alumni here in town, and we're certainly in a position where we're just uncertain of how we're going to make that work, right? And just seeing those people and connecting, not being able to do that on a regular basis, not being able to go to our favorite hangout, or go out to dinner with friends and other people. All of it is really, I think, the biggest, at least on a personal level, impactful. Professionally, I think a lot of the associations that I work with here in the state are finding ways to continue and to still provide a benefit to their membership. So I'm in the Ohio Staffing and Search Association. I sit on the board for them, and we're currently having a discussion around what we're doing with our conference that we have every summer in Put-in Bay, right? That's supposed to be in the middle of June this year, and there's a likelihood that that's going to be unable to happen in its regularity. So we're working through that. It's one of those things that we have to be careful with, still providing a value, but not, it's just going to be different. We're all socialites in this industry, I feel like, or at least to some degree. We like to be around others and work with others. And so it's just understanding how we're going to still have an impact and still be able to provide value, but in a completely different manner.
Yeah, the means by which you do that, for sure. I feel like they're going to soften some of the stay-at-home stuff at a particular point. Once they feel like it's safer for us to do that, I think we'll see people wearing masks and keeping their distance. That'll be a new normal, kind of like is pretty consistent within the communities outside of the U.S.
Sure.
But in addition to that, I don't know if we're going to be able to gather large groups of people. I don't know if the governor's going to let us until there's a vaccine. I heard him on actually a sports radio show talk about 12 to 18 months before a sporting event would be able to have fans in it. And my guess is the same will be said for any other type of conference. So, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this through Disrupt HR Columbus. Is we originally thought about, we obviously postponed the event for the time being, but I think at some point we're going to have to digitize some of our ability to connect with the community in a way that we had planned to come April 30th. So we're all figuring this out. So if you have any great ideas, let me know. And if we do, we'll share them. So
yeah, absolutely. As we're working through it, we'll be able to talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything from a silver lining, like a good thing that's come out of being quarantined and stay at home and maybe spending more time with your wife, or meals, maybe dinner time's a little different for people not always on the go. I'm curious if there's something that stood out to you.
Yeah, I'm still honestly trying to figure that out, exactly what that is. I will say this: we moved to the home we live in now at the end of September, so we've certainly got to know our neighbors in our cul-de-sac a little bit better, right, from a distance, because we aren't going out and seeing friends in that normal setting. So, anytime we can spend outside and they're outside, we're out, asking how they're doing, checking in with them. So certainly that's been nice, being in a newer neighborhood in the last couple of months. But yeah, I mean, dinners at home, we're doing everything we can to kind of split our cooking from home and then supporting some of the local restaurants here. We do live in a small community where there are some locally owned small businesses that we are just literally doing whatever we can to support them. Because we want to be able to go back, right, whenever this is all said and done and we're allowed to go back in. And, coming again, wife working in the service industry, me having been, working in the service industry capacity before, and then during school, I just feel for those families, right? I mean, it's certainly a different experience. Some of them are doing okay, and just in a different way, but there certainly are still a lot of people that have been impacted. So that's our focus. But I mean, yeah, we're spending more time together, certainly as a family. I think having our limits pushed on how much time we can spend together as a family without getting outside of the house a little more. But for me personally, I've used this time. We flipped our garage into a gym since we can't go to the gym. Living in Dublin where we live, there are a lot of walking paths, so I've got back into running a little bit, trying to still. The weather's not ideal, but just doing some things personally to put us in a better mind state, I think, as well. Which I've always been a big proponent of, exercising and just staying physically and mentally fit. So that's been something different for us, and we can do it here, which is nice. But outside of that, I mean, that's probably all of it that I can come up with right now.
No, it's plenty. Yeah. Way to be creative with the gym and getting the exercise. I've heard that quite a bit. Gotten back into running and biking and whatnot. So,
right.
So shifting gears to help the HR communities, they've been disrupted with dealing with the COVID. So specifically for your organization, any major strategic changes that you guys have made as it relates to adjusting to this temporary normal?
Yeah, I mean, again, for us and being a relatively small company, we haven't had to make a lot of changes, but we are doing, and I'd say from a planning standpoint, just doing everything we can to make sure that we can continue on moving forward, right? So I think the biggest thing, especially for me being the director of recruiting within our organization, obviously recruiting and the landscape around companies hiring has maybe not completely stopped, but it has been slowed down with not being able to meet people in person to get your paperwork, and onboarding has become a much more difficult, I think, process for a lot of companies that were used to onboarding people on site and having them sit in an office and training them on site and so on and so forth. So probably the biggest thing has been just that transition from my typical day-to-day activity of working the recruiting desk to really being consultative and working with our clients and helping them understand ways around the current, again, landscape that we have, right? Doing things differently, thinking differently, adapting quickly. The federal government has done things to help out with that as well, like allowing for I-9s to be signed remotely and then, doing all of that, which has been great. But a lot of companies aren't keeping up with that knowledge either. So I think that's been a big part of what I'm doing is trying to stay on top of all of these changes and all of the new acts that are being enacted and just paying attention, and then really making sure that our clients know about all of those opportunities that they can leverage. Also, keeping open lines of communication with others that we partner with, from financial planners and people that are certified and know a lot more about the CARES Act and things like that I certainly know at a certain level about them, but when it comes to answering very specific questions about how it affects each individual business, I'd rather be able to say, hey, you should talk to so-and-so to get more information about that. So just keeping those relationships intact and knowing that we're a resource from that standpoint, that's kind of been the change that we've seen. I will say though, on the recruiting side, as a recruiter and someone who runs the whole recruiting division for this company, we do perm and contract. I've been talking to it's hard to say how many people a day that are still being affected by this and either being furloughed or laid off or just outright losing their job. Excuse me. But having those conversations and letting them know that, it's not just them, it's not about them. This is a, pandemic that's really impacting everybody. And so, I think that's important to have those conversations because we are going to come out of this and we are going to have more regularity come back and there will be probably a rush at some point where a lot of jobs are getting pushed out there. So letting people know that they should still be having conversations. This is both, candidate people that are laid off and the client side. Don't shut this down entirely, right? Keep having conversations, know who's out there. It's maybe the best time for some companies to be having conversations because their business is also impacted, right? So just getting creative with that. We've spent a lot of time focused on that and ways that we can help companies that may not have been ready for adapting that quickly to think differently and just having those conversations with them.
Sure. Are you seeing your clients, the ones that you've been working with, that they, again, in some respects, depending upon how their industry's been impacted, right? There may be an influx of hiring needs that they may have, or finding resources.
Yeah.
So are there any like what's the vibe that you're getting from your HR comrades that are out there, working with their customers, working with their employees, working with leadership as they've adjusted to COVID and what this time means to them?
I think if you would ask me that question 2 weeks ago, we were still in more of a shock and awe phase, right? And everyone was still trying to figure out what to do that day. And it was kind of a daily, what do I do today mindset. I'm starting to see a little bit of a change already in that, and people are, I think, understanding of the new parameters and things that are going on. A lot of my contacts in HR have really tried to, they're trying to get back to somewhat of a normal. And you mentioned it the best way possible, that this is a temporary normal, interim normal. And so they're trying to adjust to that and know what they can do and what they can act on today. And again, from a hiring standpoint, I am seeing more companies start to have conversations with us about, hey, we really could use some people in this area or that area. Again, usually very specific capacities within their companies to address needs that are current. And I'm seeing them become more comfortable with, we can do the Zoom meetings or whatever system they're using to do an interview. We can go through the process. We have some kind of outline when it comes to an onboarding process for the first week now. And so, whereas 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying, I don't know when I'm going to be able to hire someone into this position, although I need it. Now I'm hearing it more. I need this person. I'm willing to see them through this process as kind of a trial basis, and hopefully it works out. But a lot of people are actually going through that now. So again, it's ever changing, right? It is, but I'm starting to see a little bit more positivity than I was 2-3 weeks ago, even at this point. Again, it's hard to believe that we've been on lockdown for almost a month, just about a month now. And so I think people are just finally starting to get that we can still do things to get the job done. It's just going to be a little bit different than what we're used to.
Yeah. Flexibility. I think you're right. The shock and all of it took everybody by, obviously, somewhat surprised, even though we saw the story happening across the in Europe and in China, obviously. But yeah, I think you're right. I'm feeling the same thing. There's a bit of a settling into this temporary normal. People are adjusting. I think the most unique thing to me about all this is that it's a combination of two significant concerns for people, which is your health and your financial security and your job, right? And we've had all that threatened in some respects. So that being said, TJ, last question I have for you, if that's okay, is just to talk a little bit about your role in DisruptHR Columbus and your spirit for it as it relates to any experiences having participated in it before or seeing it from afar. So just curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, no, first of all, I'm very excited about coming here, right? I had started my career in Cincinnati, and I think even when I was there 8, 9 years ago, it was happening then at the time, or at least was being talked about quite a bit. I've never been. I've heard and talked to many speakers that have been to Disrupt, and I know that they're really excited to have you here in Columbus. It's going to be a great event overall. It really is. When it happens, right, and when it's going to be back to a little bit more of a norm. I do think that just getting and continuing to get the word out there is exciting. It's going to be for a lot of people here in the HR community that have been involved with Sherman, involved with Morocco. It's pulling a lot of those people into a different environment, right? Just a different type of HR gathering, and I think that's exciting. Again, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to when we can all get together and celebrate the event and make it happen. From my stance, I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're going to make this happen. I'm sure you feel the same way, John. It's just a matter of time, right? We gotta get through some things first. But again, can't speak highly enough about my excitement level with it all. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, we definitely will make it happen. I think the very first one we're going to have probably is going to be different than what everybody envisioned because of the confines of the stay-at-home order and the large group large gatherings and limitations on those. But we will make it happen, and we've been committed to Columbus since we started our expansion and got the license through Jen McGlure and Disrupt HR, and just this is one of those very unique timings to have the event scheduled right in the midst of what we're all going through, but we will figure it out, and we appreciate your support as well as your commitment to helping us grow awareness about the concept. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Sure. And feel free to continue to stay in touch if there's any way I can help you out. At the same token, we appreciate everyone listening in, and please stay tuned for more information about Disrupt HR Columbus and other content we can share that's relevant to the HR community. So for now, this is John Bernadovich from Willory. I'm signing off.